All right. Good morning. Thank you for coming. I guess it's afternoon for you all there, isn't it? It's still morning in Daytona. Thank you for coming. I appreciate anyone who shows up for this kind of thing because it's not the most riveting in the world, but I'll do my best to make it interesting for you. I'm just there, tab.
Arrows.
Oh, this one?
No, you can, oh, yeah.
I'm
He
sorry,
doesn't
a
have
little
it.
technical difficulties here, sorry.
We're in a different office than we usually work in, so if you, the arrows to
Okay,
move through.
there we go. All right, so the first thing, oh, I need to go back one. We went too far. There we go. We're going to talk about obtaining an FCC license and what it is and where is my,
What are you looking for?
because I jumped in about the third slide. There we go. We're going to talk about licensing. We're going to talk about real briefly the steps to successful licensing. We're going to go in depth into the Form 601 and the instructions. We're going to briefly talk about coordination, and I'm going to do a presentation on finding things on ULS, which can be sometimes it can be a bit of a mystery. First off is, what is your license? It's your legal access to a limited resource. It's a permit to occupy bandwidth. It establishes your operating parameters. You use it as coordinated implementation, meaning that you've looked at everybody else that's around you and using those same frequencies, and it's the law. You have to have a license to transmit on these frequencies. Steps to licensing. First step, RF design. You have to have some kind of a goal in mind before you start this process. RF is a part of the overall project. You determine the appropriate or the acceptable band. You determine frequency availability. You look at propagation analysis and interference analysis, and then you identify what you want to do once you get your system up and running. Voice, data, anything else that might be able to be integrated in. And we recommend, as we APCO, that you get a qualified consultant to help you with this RF design process and determine the tools and the database that are used. That's it for design for step one. We're moving on to step two, license application preparation. This is probably one of the most important parts of this process, because this is what the FCC sees, the end product. They don't know, and we're not going to say they don't care, but they're not truly interested in how you got to this point. But they do want to see your application, and they want it filled out correctly. That's where we come in and try to help you. We have a license preparation service, but you can do it yourself. You just have to know kind of what the FCC is looking for and the forms that they want to see it. We will accept a hard copy paper form. We'll accept an electronic form. If you can fax it to us, email it to us, however you can get it to us, we'll take your application. It does require extensive knowledge of the rules and regulations, and each one of our processors have been trained to know what those rules and regulations are and how they apply to filling out the application. We tell all of our processors when they're first hired that they won't really feel comfortable in this job for at least a year and maybe two. And sometimes, and we're still learning, every one of us still learns something new all the time. So it's an ever-changing process. So here we go, right into the Form 601. The 601 is used for many different radio services. So not every item on the form needs to be completed, because it may refer to a different radio service. When we receive an application, we go through the application page by page, line by line, to be sure that it's filled out correctly, that the information is what is required by the FCC, and most Part 90 applications. So we do what we call an initial screening. And so you'll see now, this is going to tell you exactly what we do when we receive an application. We start with the main page, just like you would when you're filling it out. Radio service code is a required field, item number 1. Generally speaking, for anything below 700 megahertz, the radio service code is PW. Item number 2 is the purpose. So it's new, or it's a renewal, or it's a modification. You choose the correct entry there. Everything else you can leave defaulted. Item number 7 is yes for modifications and not applicable for new license applications. Then we'll skip down to items number 9 and 10. For public safety agencies, those should always be yes. Item number 8 says, are attachments being filed? This refers to attachments that are supposed to go to the FCC. And most of the time that answer is no. But there are frequent occasions where we do attach attachments, and then we would change that obviously to yes. So that's pretty much what we look for on the main page 1 of the application. Finding the form itself is sometimes a bit of a maze. When you go into the FCC's website, this is the home page. You'll see I have highlighted licensing and databases. That's what you need to click on to get to this page where you can find forms. So we're going to click on forms, and you get a whole list of forms. So you just scroll down till you find the 601. Luckily, it's in numeric order. And then you click on entire form 601 PDF. But don't just automatically click on this and print it, because this is 129 pages. It includes instructions for schedules that you will never need and never use. So you might want to just go in and select the specific pages that you need. One more thing about that on our previous screen, this also includes instructions, and those can be invaluable because they provide a lot of information for how to fill out the form, and things like radio service codes, station classes, what do they mean by an area of operation, and which area of operation should you use. We'll go through that when we reach those schedules, but there is a lot of information in the instructions on how to fill out the application. Main page 2. The very top item is your FRN. You'll fill that in. The next item is your legal entity. You're a governmental entity, most of you. And that's how you'll fill that out. On this page, you basically can fill out everything except item number 16. That's it. That's for an individual getting a license. And items 28 and 29, real party in interest, that doesn't apply to public safety. That's more for broadcast. But the rest of it can and should be filled in with current contact information and how you want the name on the license to appear. Main page 2 continued. Items 40 and 41, the first 2 items on this page, should be private internal communications for 41, and 42 should be mobile, and that's because we're dealing with land mobile radios. I would suggest leaving the rest of it blank, or just using whatever the default answers are on your electronic version, because anything after 45 has to do with alien ownership. And let's face it, we're government entities, we don't have alien ownership. The last section on the main page 3 is the general certification. This certifies by the applicant that the application has been completed accurately. The FCC requires that the applicant sign this, and they won't accept the vendors or the licensing service employee's signature. They will accept an attorney's signature as counsel of record. So that's the only exception. The next thing that we're going to look at is the Schedule D. This is the fixed information location. Fixed location information. In this particular application, we're going to assume it's for a new call sign. So we're going to add this new site. It's going to be fixed. That's item number 3. You choose F for fixed. In this particular one, we have an antenna structure registration number, or ASR, and that goes into item number 6. Then the coordinates that are associated with that ASR, the street address, city, state, county, elevation, the overall height of the structure itself is item number 14, this item right here. And then the overall height with appurtenances. That's anything that's on that structure that makes it taller. And then the support structure type. This sample has been around for a while because the FCC will no longer accept simply tower. You have to tell them what kind of tower it is. You have to tell them if it's lattice, monopole, or guide tower. And that, once you get to that point, you're pretty much finished with the Schedule D for a fixed location. Here are the different structure types that the FCC lists. This came right out of their instructions. Like I said, so the instructions are very handy because they give you all of this information. A lot of it does not show up on the form itself. If you were doing electronic, there's only so much information they can cram into one of those information boxes. So the instructions are helpful in that. A lot of times I will get an application that indicates a tower array. Most of the time, it's very rarely that an array is actually used. Usually somebody has clicked on that because they see lattice tower or guide tower, whereas if you go up a little bit, you will find that the guide tower and lattice are up there. But so if you put in an array, you will get questioned about it because it is rather rare. So to clarify the instructions, what the FCC is looking for on the Schedule D in item 14, that's the height of the structure itself, just from the ground level to the highest part of that structure, whether it's a building or a tower or a pole or a mast, whatever that is, they want to know just that from the ground level to the top. That goes into item 14. Item 15 is the height plus appurtenances in meters. This is confusing to people because this is not the antenna height necessarily. It could be the antenna height, as in our sample here, where from the ground to the tip, and our tower is a building with a tower is at the top, but your antenna could be anywhere between here and here. So this item here is they're just looking for the structure height plus anything that's mounted on top, whether it's your antenna or someone else's, that makes it taller. So then we're going to talk about control stations, and this is confusing to a lot of people because they think a control station and a control point that is referenced later on in the application are the same, and they are not the same. The FCC definition of a control station is an operational fixed station, the transmissions of which are used to control automatically the emissions or operation of another radio station at a specified location. Basically, this is what keys up your repeater. So this is your FX1. If your FX1 meets the 6.1 meter rule, which I've got right here, the FCC defines that as the control station will operate on the same frequency as the mobile station, and if the height of the antennas will not exceed 6.1 meters or 20 feet above ground, or an existing man-made structure other than an antenna structure, which I think is funky wording, but basically they're saying other than a tower, there is no limit on the number of such units that will be, which will be authorized. Schedule D continued. Items 3, so we're going to do the 6.1 meter site here. So we're going to choose a 6.1 meter control station in our location description. And then you will have an option of your area of operation code. For 6.1 meter sites, X is your only option. If you send in anything else, we will have to change it to X. Item number 11, the state is required. But item number 12, the county is not required. That's optional. There are reasons why you would have it. If you've got a situation where your license will cover multiple counties, then you would want to define that using the different counties for your 6.1 meter sites, but it's not required, even if you are using multiple counties. The FCC allows the applicant to put his FX1s anywhere within his mobile area of operation. And although the Schedule D might seem to allow statewide coverage, FX1s are only legal within the specified mobile area of operation. Refer to 90.305B, and that's where it states that limitation. So we're going to add now a mobile location, and there are several different area of operation codes. And in the electronic version that we use, when you click this, I started to point at it like you can see me. When you click this down arrow, you get various options. This is the most common one that we use, A, and it then references this mobile to a fixed location and defines an area of operation down here in 17 and 18. But if you had, say you had just mobiles, you were just doing a mobile only application and you wanted to have it work in a radius around a random point, then you would use P, and then you would have coordinates and move on from there. And these various fields would open up depending on what area of operation code you choose. This again comes right out of the instructions, and it says if you use A, then you're going to have a fixed location, a temporary fixed or a mobile radius, and it tells you the item numbers that you need to complete. Here's the P I was talking about, a center point. It tells you the item numbers here that you need to complete. It does that all the way around. It has here, oh good, it's no longer on there. It used to be, they had citywide available, but as you can see, it's no longer there. It's not a viable option for business or public safety. But we used to have people choose that a lot, so we'd always have to have them change it. So the next thing is that we're going to look at is the Schedule H in the application. Items 3 through 7 are completed by the coordinator, so you don't have to worry about it. But you do need to fill in items 1 and 2. Eligibility, which is the rules section. Most people will be eligible under 90.20. And describe activity. This doesn't mean describe the activity of what you're trying to do with this application. It wants to know how these frequencies are being used for public safety or as a governmental entity. Extended implementation down here, or slow growth. You could have heard it both ways. This is where you tell the FCC that you would like to have a slow growth and you attach your plan with the application. If you have a system in operation and you're adding sites and you have to start a new license, you need to show the FCC the rest of the system. There are a lot of systems out there where they have bases all licensed on one call sign. Their FX1s are all licensed on another call sign, and their mobiles are on a third call sign. So if this one is adding only mobiles or only fixed sites, the FCC wants to know where their control stations and their mobiles are, and that's where you would put in to your associated call signs to show the FCC where the complete system is. At the bottom of this page, I didn't have room to put it all in there, are control points. And the FCC defines the control point as the location at which the control operator function is performed. That may or may not be your fixed site. It may or may not be the address on your main page 1, or main page 2 actually. So that's something to consider. Oftentimes, the control point is also their fixed location, and so that same address goes down here. And main page, Schedule H, page 2, that's your antenna information. Each location should have an antenna, even the mobiles, although they won't have any other information. Mobiles and 6.1s just need to be shown on the application. So you can see here my item 3 could be either a mobile or a 6.1. This is all the information that's required for that. If you have fixed sites, at a minimum on this page, we need item number 33. I can't read it. I'm so sorry. 23, completed. We need to know the height of your antenna. Again, that's from the ground to the tip of your antenna after it's mounted. So here, as you can see, gives an illustration. Our overall height width appurtenances is from ground level up here to the top of that antenna, but the one we're dealing with is this one that's on the side of the building. This is the antenna height that needs to go in item 23 that we just looked at. And the last page on your application is the frequency information page, perhaps one of the most important parts of this application. So you would, in each of these columns, obviously your action column for this new call sign is all add. We've got a location and then an antenna number. Quite often you can have more than one antenna at your sites. Not a problem, you just have to number them. Then you have station class. FB2 refers to a repeater, excuse me. Number of units, pagers if you have them go in this next column, output power, ERP. This is information you have to provide us because we don't know your system design. On this one, line number 2, location 2 is our FX1s. We're gonna have 5 of those and our output and ERP are 20 and 20. Down here in the mobiles, line number 3, location 3 is our mobiles. And we can put both the car units or whatever's in your fire trucks or whatever, and your handheld units all on one page. Actually, and in actual fact, you could, in theory, lump all of these together just so it covers all of your mobile units. This separation is a little clearer. It lets people know that they've got talk around on their repeater, mobile talk around, and they have handheld units that also operate on these frequencies. The next item that we will have to complete on this application is the emission designators over here in column 37. Again, that is information that you must provide us. It should be provided to you through your vendor or the manufacturer. When this equipment is approved by the FCC, certain emission designators are approved for that equipment's operation, and we do need to have that information from you on the application. That's going through the application very quickly. It takes us longer than that to do a screening of the application. So I'm going to show you some of the things that we do look at in screening. Here, common station classes, the most common ones. Basically, I showed you on the application. FB is base only, simplex operation. FB2 is repeater. I can remember that because it means there are 2 frequencies needed for a repeater system. Mobiles, MO equals mobiles or handheld units. FX1 obviously is a control station. FX2 is a link. It's often in a different band. FXO is fixed operation. That's often telemetry. And then there's MO3, which is the mobile repeater or vehicular repeater. And step 3, frequency coordination. Again, I'm going to go into detail on this, but coordination speed depends on steps 1 and 2, your RF design and your frequency coordination, your application. We coordinate from these applications, so that information needs to be as accurate as possible so that when we do our coordination, we don't assign something that may cause interference. We try very hard to avoid that, but again, that's dependent on the information that you've provided on the application. Coordinators verify frequencies that are selected and submitted by the applicant. We don't just take your word for it, because we also have to certify that the application is coordinated correctly. So anything that's sent in to us will be looked at and verified. It's not rubber stamped by APCO. Coordinators can also search for the most appropriate frequency. Sometimes that frequency may not come from, say, a specific pool within the of frequencies available for public safety. In that pool of frequencies, each coordinator is assigned particular frequencies for their pool. The FCC says this is shared spectrum, so we're allowed to go into someone else's pool, but we have to get their approval on the application, and then there is a charge associated with that. And then finally, once we go through the whole coordination process, we submit the application to the FCC. That also is a requirement. The FCC requires that these forms be coordinated and submitted electronically. We do an electronic batch file. So, so we wouldn't coordinate the application and send it back to you. It stays with us and we send it to the FCC. The most requested frequencies obviously is VHF, with UHF coming in a close second. This spectrum is congested all over the country, and it doesn't matter if you're in Wyoming or if you're in New York City, it's all congested now. VH channel centers are not uniformly consistent due to odd block assignments over the years, so they're hard to find and assign. That's something that you could be confident in, but we manage it. We work real hard, and we will allow an applicant to monitor these frequencies before they give us a final approval if that's best for everybody. And in VHF, input and output channels are not paired, whereas in UHF, and this includes all frequencies up through 800 megahertz, they are paired. So if you ask for a UHF pair, you automatically get the other side. You get the base side, that's what we're basically coordinating and charging you for, and you get the mobile side with that. Now we're going to go into finding your way around ULS. It's a maze. On our homepage, and you can go into licensing and databases like I showed you before, or you can check down here in this Access Now, and it gets you directly into certain things. When we get an application in, it has an FRN. We check the FRN on the FCC's website to be sure it's valid, to be sure that the information that we were provided matches what the FCC's been told on the FRN page. And you can also access ULS, Universal Licensing System. This is the ULS homepage. The most used pages can be accessed from this page. You can pay fees, you can find your forms, you can run a tower search, you can look for ASRs, and you can register your tower here. You can do a license search and a lot more. Application search, they've got license archives. So this is a very useful page because you can get just about everything you need here. If you go into license search, this is the screen that you'll be looking at. When you search for a call sign, you can click this down arrow and it gives you several options on how you want to search. You can search by call sign. That's usually your cleanest way. You can search by FRN. That will get you every license associated with that FRN. You can also search by applicant name. That's kind of a bingo kind of thing. You might find what you're looking for, but you might not. And you can get page after page after page of applications that way, or licenses. Call sign is the best. FRN is probably the second best. So if you do a call sign search, this is what your page will look like when you get your results. And the call sign itself is a link. So to see the rest of this license, you're going to click on that link, and then it'll take you to this page. This, you can see, gives you several options here. You've got main page, admin, location, frequencies. This gives you the basic licensing information. This is the name that appears on the call sign, the formal license. If you click on locations, then you get this result, and to look at a specific location. Say we need to find out what kind of structure this first location has. So if we click on location 1, then we get more. You just drill down further into the license. So you can see we've got a location, we've got elevation, structure information, the type of structure. If it's got an ASR, it'll show here. It also gives you antenna information here. That's where you find that. It's not readily apparent on any version of the license. You have to kind of drill in and find that. So it also, on this page, you can see that it gives you some options about how to determine whether you've got a build out notice due. And once you click on build out here on the frequency page, then it will take you down into this result down here. Now this particular sample that I pulled up has been in effect since 1985. So there's no build out deadline or anything like that. But this is where you would find it. If this was new, say this was 10/22/2020, your build out deadline would appear here, and you need to do your Schedule K or build out notification by this date here. And you can also look at emission designators. This particular one's low band, so the wideband emission designators are still good for it. But again, they all show here. I didn't put everything on. I was running out of space. And then on the far side over here, we've got the IRAC option. We're going to click on that just so you can see. When you look at your application or your license online and you look at the history, you'll see IRAC referenced. IRAC is interference coordination frequencies. They check all of these things, and there's various codes that would appear on your license if it had any kind of an issue with the IRAC or NTIA. It would have to go. It gets run through them. All of the applications do get run through them. So if you're going to look for applications, it's basically the same kind of information, but your options here are slightly different because then you'd be going by file number. Once an application is submitted to the FCC assigns a 10-digit file number. And our application numbers are kind of secondary then. So you can find it by file number, you can find it by FRN, or you can find it by applicant name again here. Again, your results screen look very similar to the license, but there's your file number, and again, that's your access to look at the application. We click on that, it comes back in here. It's just pretty much the same as what we were looking at before. You can make a reference copy of the application by clicking here. You get a PDF copy. The admin tab gives some other information. It references the file number, tells you that the status has been granted. It gives you a history here where it indicates that it was reviewed, it was granted, the authorization was printed. And service specific. This comes in, this tells that whoever is looking who coordinated it. APCO coordinated this one. It gives the control points, all this information is on an application. So it's there, and it's, once it hits the FCC, it's public knowledge. So it's there and available. Each one of these location links on the application, once you go to location tab, is very much like what we looked at on the license. It gives you all of that detailed information. Fixed location tells you, it shows you the antenna along with all the other information. There's no ASR. This is the tower, coordinates, the address. It's all there. Site elevation is here. Everything that was sent to the FCC pertaining to that location is here, including your antennas. On the frequency tab, you can see here that this particular sample is from a modification. We're modifying these frequencies. We're deleting a couple. We're adding a new one. And this tells us the station class. There's our location numbers, antenna numbers. This frequency ID, that's something internal to the FCC, and I think it's the EBF process that we don't have to worry about. You can see we can't change it or look at it any further. Your output power ERP is also shown on this page. And they've also got license archive search. So if you want to see what somebody's license looked like 2 modifications ago, this is where you're going to go and find it. So you'll put in the call sign. You've got other options on how to search if you don't have a call sign and you just know that somebody has a license but you don't know what the call sign is. So you've got other options to search, but the call sign is really the easiest. So you put that in and then you click search. The whole record, there's 2 pages worth of records for this call sign for Portage County. Each one of those then takes you to a copy of the license. I don't believe at this point you can access applications for these licenses, but you can see the various stages that it's gone through. Accessing ASR and TOWAIR. When we get an application in and it has a fixed site, we run it through TOWAIR to verify that whether it does or does not need an ASR. We put all the information in here. We just transfer it from the application here. Coordinates, overall height, support structure, that's the overall width appurtenances, support structure, the structure itself, elevation, it's a building, you hit submit, and you get your results. And you see this particular one failed slope. It needs an ASR. And we would send you a copy of these results in an email to let you know that this is what we found. You can, why didn't that? And you can go back and search, oh here, this is where I needed to be. You can search for an ASR also, the antenna structure registration. If your tower is more than 200 or more feet high, you have to register it. And sometimes it depends on where you sit next in relation to an existing airport. So there are various reasons why you would need an ASR. So if you know the number, you can search it by number. And again, you've got other search options here. I can't remember. Let's see, I didn't write them down. Ooh, bad. But you can also search by coordinates. If you know where your site is, you can see if it already has an ASR. Because quite often a tower will be there for many years, and the people that are putting their antennas up don't necessarily know that they've got that it already has an ASR, so they can check and see. For rules and regulations, you click here on the home page where it says see more under the access now tab, and then we're going to click on 47 CFR. And that will take us to this page. CFR 47 is the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 47. We're looking at Part 90. And the rules by which frequencies are coordinated are in Part 90, and we would select that down here. Also, various tools that we use would be, quite often we get information from our applicants in coordinates, say, and they've got it in decimals. The FCC wants the information provided on the applications in degrees, minutes, and seconds. So they've got a conversion tool that we can use to change that to degrees, minutes, seconds. And then we have the FCC also has online a distance conversion to convert your feet to meters or your miles to kilometers. There are lots of those conversion tools out on the internet. They'll all work the same way, so you can go ahead and use that. Another handy tool that the FCC has is their HAAT calculator. That is a value that must be completed on the application. We calculate it when we do coordination, but you can also calculate it and send it on the application too. We'll verify it, and if we have a big difference, we'll let you know. But generally, if you use this tool, if you provide us the coordinates, you're gonna let it default to NAT 83. Your value here, the RCAMSL, is your site elevation plus your antenna height. The antenna height, not the structure height. Put that value in here, do 360, and I always choose the FCC terrain data because it's more accurate, and then you will get your results for your AAT. That is a really quick run through of what we look for and what we look at with it when we receive an application. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you, if I can.